Should the Miami Dolphins fire head coach Mike McDaniel? I'm Connor from the Dolphins Dive, here to break it all down. I'm going to break this video up into two portions. The reasons the Dolphins should keep Mike McDaniel and the reasons the Dolphins should fire Mike McDaniel. And at the very end, I'm going to give you my answer on whether or not I think they should. Now, if I'm taking the stance that the Miami Dolphins should not fire head coach Mike McDaniel, the first stance I'm taking is that this team has not quit on him. Despite the awful start to the season, in the very tumultuous times, this team has continued to fight and bounce back. Considering the run that the Dolphins started to go on really started after getting whooped by the Browns, the fact that they were able to pick themselves up and continue to show up and compete is a testament to the head coach. You have to give him credit for that. And we saw that last year as well. I think we won 3 in a row, lost 4 in a row, and it was a lot of ups and downs, and the teams continue to fight for him. So that's something to give him credit for. The next would be his offensive innovation. We're all very aware of that, and we see it on a weekly basis. Some of the stuff that he schemes up, you see some ballsy breakdowns, and he's like, these are plays I've never seen before in my life. And Mike McDaniel offers that. And in a time where offensive innovation and high-level offensive thinking is at a premium in terms of a lot of them, even if they're not ready yet, will get hired for head coaching jobs because the ability to have a solid offense. And when you have it as a head coach, you don't have to worry about scheme turnover year over year. You see with Baker Mayfield, he's on how many offensive coordinators in a row. We saw it with Tua before McDaniel came here. You see it with a lot of coordinators. Jalen Hurts has gone through so many offensive coordinators, and every time that happens, you lose some of the continuity that builds really good rapport within an offense, and lacks the ability to build off of last year. So his offensive innovation, which is, I would say, in terms of innovation, he's probably top 3 in the league. But with that, there's obviously some weaknesses. Then we'll get into that in the second half. But his offensive innovation, tied to the fact that you don't have to worry about the scheme turnover year over year, is something to really think about. And just in general, I really like a lot of the cornerstones of this offense in terms of the offensive line running off of the football, and obviously running the football off of that, but also the play action passes and the play passes off of that. And we see, whether it's some very intriguing screens that he has cooked up or just the different wrinkles that he's able to establish, is just a big testament to him and his ability to think offensive football. And the third, and honestly I would say the biggest reason, if I was someone defending Mike McDaniel, the reason to keep him would be his ability to identify and develop players specifically on the offensive side of the football. Mike McDaniel is a guy who constantly repeats how long he's been in this offensive scheme. I think it's probably been close to 23 years, dating all the way back to the Denver Broncos under Mike Shanahan. And he knows this offense like the back of his hand. He knows the exact kind of players that fit this scheme, and you've seen it in his tenure in the Miami Dolphins in terms of bringing in players that are questionable to a lot of other people, and they're perfect scheme fits. One of the best examples would be left tackle Patrick Paul. Coming out of the draft, everybody's like, this is a very raw, toolsy guy who I don't know if I see it with him. He needs to be developed, and there's a lot of question marks. And obviously, he had a year under Teron Armstead, but he's been a perfect scheme fit. He's been one of the best left tackles in all football, and that's a position that, if you nail, that's big ups to you. It looks like the Dolphins have their left tackle of the future for the next 10 years, and that's a huge home run pick. And then I think back right to the offensive line when the Dolphins signed center Aaron Brewer, and I vividly remember Titan fans being like, good luck. He's undersized, he can't hold a block, he's trash. And he's been the best center in football this year because, once again, he's a perfect scheme fit. Mike McDaniel saw his skill set and was like, he is perfect for our offense. The dude's ability to get in open space and run, he is a weapon for our run game. And we see it week in, week out of how good Aaron Brewer was. And that's, in my opinion, a testament specifically to Mike McDaniel. And then continuing on the offensive line with right tackle Austin Jackson, prior to Mike McDaniel, the dude was a complete bust, and we've seen him develop into a very good offensive lineman, specifically in the run game. And obviously he's dealt with his injuries, but in terms of his ability to develop and fit in this scheme, it's been perfect. Now, obviously, year one of Jonas Vainaya has not been great, but we've seen him develop over the course of the season, and I expect if McDaniel were to stay head coach in year 2, year 3, he'd look very good. Mike McDaniel also got the very best out of quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, who I think ultimately I think it's been a physical decline that's led to kind of him being where he's at. But I mean, 2022, 2023, Tua Tagovailoa was a very good quarterback in this league. He was an MVP candidate in 2023 until the Ravens. And I would say we've also seen it with the draft selection of Devon Achane. We all know Mike McDaniel is a proponent of that. His reaction on draft day was great. And Devon Achane has been, once again, one of the best players in all of football. And that's a big testament to Mike McDaniel, in my opinion. Jalen Wright's look good. Ollie Gordon's look good. And that doesn't all go on Mike McDaniel. There's scouts and position coaches involved in that as well. But for this offensive scheme, there's a very specific style of runner that they look for, and I think the Dolphins have done a very good job in the Mike McDaniel era of doing that. Now, obviously, tight end has been a very big position of need for this offense to have success, and they've relied on Julian Hill maybe a little bit too much. But overall, I think Mike McDaniel's ability to identify and develop players on the offensive side of the ball is very impressive and would be the main reason I would look to keep him if I was pro keeping Mike McDaniel as head coach. In terms of the reasons to fire him, if you want Mike McDaniel fired, I think the first reason would just be the potential lack of the needed leadership at the head coaching position to garner the respect of the players to kind of act and behave a certain way. And obviously we've seen so much of the buzz for this Miami Dolphins team. It's been a very big criticism of Mike McDaniel. Obviously hearing the Jalen Ramsey saga, the exodus of a lot of star players this past offseason. So it's just something to think about, because I don't know how much of it's a testament to McDaniel. I mean, I don't think Kyle Shanahan's a guy that his players are necessarily fearful of as they might have been a Bill Belichick or Mike Vrabel, but there's a level of respect that's commanded and expected, and McDaniel's style of leadership is, I'm going to work my ass off, follow suit, but also he empowers his leaders to kind of set that standard. And I don't necessarily disagree with it, but maybe there needs to be more of a heavy-handed leadership approach that is more well-respected. I've heard players speak about it where, like, you can tell when he's serious, and when he's serious, like, we're dialed. He'll chew people out. And I think that's probably been part of a development for him. But overall, I think that could be something that is to be thought about. The next would be the inability to show up in big moments. Over the course of his tenure, just feels like every primetime game, every big game to kind of get us over the hump, we tend to lose. And once again, this is slightly unfair. I mean, we beat the Bills this year. I think back to last year, we had the Rams on primetime, I believe, to get back to 500, and we won that game. So, like, he has shown up in moments. It's just not consistent enough. I mean, 2023, we're facing the Ravens for the 1 seed, and we lose, and we get blown out. Last year or 2 years ago, I want to say it's last year, Thanksgiving against the Packers, we just do not show up. And part of it too, and it's something that's been very interesting throughout the Mike McDaniel era, is it typically just seems to be a spiral in a lot of these key important games where sometimes the offense will show up and the defense doesn't, sometimes the defense shows up and the offense doesn't, and it kind of causes the full game to unravel. I think back to the Packers game last year where essentially before the offense touched the ball, we were down 14-0. It's like, at that point, it was just off to a horrendous start. That Ravens game for the 1 seed, the offense is going shot for shot with the Ravens. Tyreek Hill drops a touchdown. The defense can't get a stop. We lose like 56-14. It was bad. But it always seems to be something like that. And overall, the blame goes on the head coach. Even if not all of it's directly on him, it just, there is an inability to show up in those big games. 3 was he was pro paying Tua, which once again, like, I don't know how much I blame him because we can, like, if you can't admit that Tua in that 2023 year, and he showed it in 2022 as well, he just got hurt, was playing at a very, very high level. Like, if you disagree, I don't, like, we're looking at different things, but ultimately he's responsible for sticking his neck out of saying, let's pay this guy, and then 2 years later he's benched. So that is a red flag. Obviously, Quinn Ewers in his 2 games have looked solid, so something to consider. The last reason I'd be for firing him is I feel like the offense at times is too gimmicky or just lacks a counterpunch, where there's a lot of cute stuff that happens, and it works a lot, but when it doesn't, it seems like we get stuck. When, for example, they flood the middle of the field, we just don't have an answer. And it takes games to figure it out. And once again, I mean, it does happen to some of the best coaches. However, it just seems to be too constant where there's a certain strategy employed and we just can't execute what needs to get done to have success against certain looks. And once again, like if the cute stuff doesn't work and we can't run the ball, like the passing game is too one-dimensional in my opinion, where it's too reliant on other things to be going well, that if the Dolphins are down 10 with 10 minutes left, or 10 with 6 minutes left, where they're more having to pass, I feel like every single time in those situations this offense fails because, once again, when you don't have the run game to instill fear into those defenses, the pass game sucks. And once again, maybe that is on Tua, but some of the blame has to go on Mike McDaniel, and it is a consistent issue where when everybody in the stadium knows the Dolphins have to pass, it typically does not go well. And once again, maybe that is the quarterback, and maybe having someone who is able to create a little bit more, like a Quinn Ewers, will unlock that. It's just, obviously, we've only had 2 games of it, and every other backup quarterback hasn't necessarily had the ability to create all that well. But yeah, I just feel like it is too... The passing game is too reliant on other parts of the offense to have success, that if we can't run the ball and our screen game or the kind of the gimmicky motion, get the ball out quick, doesn't work, our team is cooked. And that is an issue. So yeah, overall, those are the reasons I would fire Mike McDaniel. Comment down below anything I missed in terms of why we should keep him, why we should fire him. But ultimately, my opinion on it is I think the Miami Dolphins should keep head coach Mike McDaniel, barring any surprising firings. Like if a John Harbaugh or a Mike Tomlin gets fired, I would take a heavy look at that, despite them kind of being disappointing of late. But aside from that, this head coaching market is not all that appealing. And I think McDaniel will probably get scooped up as a head coach elsewhere because, as I mentioned, that yearn to have an offensive mind who is a innovator and kind of you can, once again, you'd like someone who's maybe more developed, but he's on the cusp of offensive innovation, and you know that you'll have that year in, year out, to a team with a young quarterback like the Giants or maybe the Browns with a resource to maybe get a quarterback, or I don't know if they like Shador. So for that reason, I think the Dolphins keep him, but I would like this to be a pure decision made by the hired GM. Obviously, the timelines kind of get messy because you usually fire him right after the season ends, and the Dolphins will be hiring a GM post that. So it'll be interesting to see. But that is my thoughts. Comment your thoughts down below. Appreciate you guys for watching. Like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Until next time, fins out.